some of these people...
The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast, connecting Virginians with their government. We're pleased to have Delegate Riley Ingram with us today. Part of your district includes Chesterfield.
Yes, sir.
And congratulations again. You still chair the County, Cities, and Towns Committee in the House of Delegates.
Yes, sir.
Tell us why that's such an important committee.
Well, Virginia is a Dillon rule state, and what that means is Judge Dillon ruled along, this has been years ago, and Judge Dillon ruled that the state, the locality had no more power than what the state would give them. Woody, it's a good law because if you did not, let's say that you were speeding a little bit in one locality and another one speeding a little bit in another one locality may charge you $150, where this locality only charges you $10 or $12. Okay, big difference. So that's one reason why that we are a Dillon rule state, and I think it is a good rule. Now, having said that, the County, Cities, and Towns Committee, we oversee everything that comes before counties, cities, and towns. Anything that they want to change, whether it be charters, or we had one last week, for example, that came out of subcommittee that was very controversial, and it was, in my opinion, it was not a good bill. It was a bill that was introduced, and it said that the local government appointed, elected Board of Supervisors, City Council members, Town Council, whatever, that they could take someone off of the committee at any time they wanted to, whether it be school board or what have you. And some localities do still have appointed school boards. Woody, if you did that, and the reason this was bad is because it would politicize everything in the world. So if the school board wanted to do something and the city council or the county board of supervisors wanted them to vote a certain way, and they didn't think that that was what was best, and they vote and didn't agree with 3 or 4 members of the board of supervisors or city council, they could pull them off for no reason at all.
I see.
And that was a bill that we were able to kill in the full committee because it came out of subcommittee on a 8-2, 8-3 vote. And the only reason it came out of the subcommittee, Woody, was because of the fact that they did change it to say 2/3 vote of the locality, the board of supervisors, or what have you. Woody, it was still not good because a lot of votes, just like in the city of Hopewell, for example, is on a 4-3 vote. Sometimes, other localities are the same thing. So it just would politicize the entire appointment process, and so we were able to get rid of, kill that bill. So there are so many things that happen at the local level, either county, cities, and towns, and that's why the committee is important.
Right, so they are all creatures of the state, and they don't have authority to do anything without the state's blessing, so to speak.
That's correct. That's correct. And having served on Hopewell City Council for, I served on Hopewell City Council for roughly 4 or 5, about 6 years total, almost 6 years, and served as council member, vice mayor, and mayor of the city of Hopewell. In fact, I was a mayor for 3.5 years, and So I can see where, I've had many opportunities, Woody, to change that committee and go to something else. But I enjoy that committee because that's where my expertise is in county, cities, and towns. And so that's why I've stayed on that committee from the time I was first appointed by Tom Moss was the Speaker of the House when I came on in January of 1992. So I'm one of the older ones now. And Woody, that's interesting too. Let me tell you, when I came in 1992, just to give you an example of some of the others that were in that class, Bill Mims is now on the Supreme Court. Bob McDonnell, of course, he was the governor, and I just think it's a shame that all the things that are happening there, because Bob is such a good person. He really is, and he was an excellent governor. But Bob McDonnell, Bill Mims, and Eric Cantor, that was in Congress, he was in that class. But anyway, one day we were at ease on the House floor, and we were watching a basketball game or something on one of those little TVs, and someone said, of course, now you have to realize this was 24 years ago.
Right.
And they said, Riley, God, look at all these old people in here. And I said, yeah, it is a lot of old people in here. And Woody, I look around the room now and I say, good gosh, look at all these young people in here, because I'm one of the old ones. But I enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy representing the people, and it's a real honor to be here to represent the people to the best of my ability.
Great. Well, how are things going in Chesterfield in particular, in terms of the economy?
Very good. Woody, Chesterfield is just a well-ran county. They have an excellent board of supervisors. They are growing, but yet their mix of business and residential is very, very good. And it was just announced just recently that they're going to be, it's a Chinese company that's come in with a paper plant that's going to employ a total of about 2,000 people.
2,000 people, that's a lot.
And it's going to be, they're going to be good paying jobs. Now, we're looking at probably 18 months or so down the road, because they've got to do all the preliminary work, build, and everything. So it's going to take a while, but that's something that's really positive for the county. You've got so many places over there that's been expanding, and it's Chesterfield's on the move. They really are. They're doing very, very good.
Well, that's significant, and of course, more of that needs to happen statewide, given what's been happening in Washington. We are too dependent upon the federal government. We've got, I think, about 44 military installations and the Pentagon, and with sequestration, it's a hard thing, but it means across-the-board budget cuts, borne primarily by the military. It has really hurt the Commonwealth.
It really has, Woody, and that's why the Commonwealth, we were $2.5 billion under what we had budgeted, and had to make up for that deficit. And the reason for it, the biggest reason for it, of course, is this sequestration, which is a very difficult word for me to say, but what we have is in Northern Virginia. Woody, this is what is going on right now as we speak. People that have been making six figures, I'm talking $150,000, $160,000 a year, they're having to take jobs now at $80,000, $85,000 a year. Well, see, that difference in that income, it puts you in a much higher income bracket, so therefore the state is not getting this income that they normally would get. So, and this is because of the military cutbacks and these contracts that are military contracts that are not being done now. We rely so much, Hampton Roads, the Tidewater area, big reliance on military, and that definitely has a big impact on us here in Virginia. Fort Lee right now with this new BRAC coming up, where they're talking about...
That's the Base Realignment Commission.
Base Realignment Commission, yes. With that coming up very soon, Fort Lee, I was not able to be at the meeting, but they've already had a couple meetings already that to try to explain what a big impact it is on this area. What I am hoping, and what so many of us are hoping, is that Fort Lee is actually going to expand instead of decrease. Example of that is we have a big presence of Fort Lee where right now, say the Air Force and the Marines and the Navy and the Air Force and the Army have three different sections going on. We're thinking that they could consolidate this, like they have, with food service and logistics and things like this, consolidate these into one place. Fort Lee has the personnel, they have the buildings, they have the land that they can expand. So we're hoping that this will end up expanding instead of contracting.
Yeah, that's interesting because it really has a ripple effect because there are a lot of small businesses that have grown up around those military bases.
You bet. And the thing of it is there are at any given time about 40,000 people that rely or are there, at Fort Lee. This is a big impact, Woody, on the economy for the entire area. Everything from, all the way around the Tri-Cities, whether it be Chesterfield and Colonial Heights, Hopewell, Prince George, Dinwiddie, Petersburg, the entire area. We depend so much on Fort Lee, and Fort Lee is a great neighbor because they're there to help us in every way they can.
And I imagine that a number of those service people retire to the community. There are a lot of veterans coming back from the theaters of war. And how are we encouraging them to stay and become entrepreneurs?
Virginia has a real big retirement community for the military. And so many of the military retirees retire here in Virginia because of we're close to Washington, D.C. We've got the Atlantic Ocean, we've got water, we've got good hunting, fishing. Then you've got the mountains on the other side, which is so conveniently located to so many things. But our military, we are having different programs now that are in place for the employers to hire these people because they're they're well disciplined.
Right.
They have so much experience. They have a lot of skills, and so therefore we're really working on that a great deal, and I think it's working.
And I think there's been a move afoot to provide credits, if you will, at our community colleges for veterans who are returning who have work experience. For example, if you were a medic overseas, you probably know a whole lot more about that than a person in a classroom.
You bet.
And I think there's a program that will allow credits for that type of work experience.
Woody, you're exactly right. It reminds me of this story that this man was going to be operated on, and so it was a very special operation that he had his choice of someone that had been in the field and someone that had written a book. And so the two doctors were talking to him, and he said that he had written a book and he knew all about this and everything, but he knew everything about the operation process, but he had never actually performed the operation. This other gentleman had been in combat and had done this operation like 15 or 16 times. And he didn't write a book, and he didn't know all the things that the gentleman knew that wrote the book. And so they asked him which one he would pick, and he said he would pick the one with the experience. And it's very, very true, because you hit the nail on the head.
And of course, those community colleges are just as important as K through 12 in our institutions of higher learning, are they not?
Yes, and our community college system here in Virginia is second to none. They do an excellent job of training, and so many of the community colleges now have reciprocal agreements with colleges all across the state where they can, once they finish the 2 years, they can transfer the credits right to the 4-year institution and get a complete, instead of just an associate's degree, get a full degree, a bachelor's degree in whatever field they may want to go into from the 4-year institution, and it's really, really good. And Also, our community college system, as you know, Woody, all people are not college
Right.
bound. I mean,
Exactly.
and just like in my little real estate business, we have plumbers that are making six figures, live in beautiful homes, and you know, but they enjoy life. They make a good living for the family. But you've got electricians, you've got plumbers, you've got welders, you've got all these people that need to care for their family, and through these technical skills, they can do it.
Right. So, and there's that 2+2 program. There's a lot of opportunities either for trades or for the kids you indicate who want to go on to one of our institutions of higher learning. There's also retraining for those adults who unfortunately lost jobs during the Great Recession.
Right. That's true. And Woody, our community college system, we even have where students are like seniors in high school, and they have a dual enrollment. And they're finishing up high school, but they're also taking courses at the college level through John Tyler or not Richard Bland, but John Tyler,
Right.
or J. Sargent Reynolds, or one of the community colleges.
So, in terms of our institutions of higher learning, I know the costs continue to rise, and there are reports of students who are not able to continue to pursue their education. What are we doing this year in order to alleviate some of those costs?
That is an excellent question, and we are working on this. See, so much of the fees that are charged to the students are they don't have anything to do with the actual learning process in the school. Kirk Cox has a bill this year that is looking at the student fees for sports, for example. In other words, when you have some of the bigger schools that have a big sports program, what they're doing is in their student fees, they may add another $500, $600, $800 in there for the sports.
Right.
And that, in my opinion, and so many of us feel the same way, that this is not a part of that. I don't mind them paying a small amount because it helps the school, okay? But my goodness, to be paying the kind of money that some of them are paying and instead of going up, I think that something needs to be done with that.
Right, and I understand there's been a commitment to hold K through 12 harmless, even though it hasn't kept up with costs, but
Right.
you want to protect that.
We have put more money into K through 12. However, when you look at the inflation and look at everything, the cost the money that we have put there is still less than what it should be. Now, on the first cuts that we made, the $2.5 billion, we thought that this year we may have to cut K through 12, but we do not want to cut K through 12. And in the governor's budget, he did not cut K through 12, so I don't know any way in the world that that's going to happen, because this is the foundation that we. In other words, the foundation is built from a kindergarten all the way up through the senior year, and we do not need to cut those services.
Right. Now, I understand that bicycles are on your agenda this year, but I wanted to congratulate you on your check cashing legislation that passed last session.
Yes, Woody, we were very fortunate after a long fight of like 3 years, but I finally did get that through the committee, and it was to protect mostly the elderly and mostly the female elderly, that someone would come to their house and say, I'm going to do all this work for $1,800, but in order for me to get the material, I need $250 or $300. And the lady, not knowing any better, she'd write the check, and she'd trust everyone. She'd write the check. The person would take the check to a check cashing place where no ID was required, and cash the check with no ID required. He's on his way. He's gone somewhere else and doing the same thing, never to be seen again. And so this bill stopped that, supposedly because of the fact that they will have to show some form of identification. So I was able to do exactly what I wanted to do. Now, of course, some of the opposition was because of the ones that are here undocumented, so to speak, but we covered that by putting in there that any form of identification, Mexican identification, what have you. So, but I was really pleased with it that we finally got that through, and the governor signed it, and everything is there.
Now you're working on bicycles.
Now this year, I had a lady that called me. She was very upset, I could tell, and she said that she was on Route 5 going to Williamsburg, and she rounded the turn, and that speed limit is 55 miles an hour. So she said she rounded the turn, and there were 4 bicycles riding abreast, which they're supposed to ride in single file. She said that she almost hit one of them. She had to put on brakes because the car was coming the other way. She said that something needed to be done, she said, because there were taxpayers' money that had just built a brand new, well-paved bike trail, but they were not on the bike trail, they were in the road. So it seemed like a common sense measure to me to put in a bill that all it says is that if there is a bike trail there, that they would use the bike trail instead of being in the road. Well, the emails have been flying, the telephone has been ringing, the bicyclists do not like the bill at all. I mean, I don't know if it'll pass or not. What I'm willing to do is change it so that it only applies to Route 5, because that is a dangerous road and that is a bike route. And now it's eventually, and it's under construction now. A lot of the parts of the trail are already finished, but a lot of it is under construction from here on down to Williamsburg. But they're working on a lot of it now between 295 and the city of Richmond to put the bike trail in. I really and truly think that it's a common sense bill. It's a safety issue. In other words, the lady was saying, Delegate Ingram, you know, if I had hit that person, she said, I would have had to live with that for the rest of my life. And I understand that. And so anyway, I think it is a safety measure. Where it's going to go, I don't know, but I know I've caused a lot of controversy again. So
What's the rationale behind the opposition, if you've been able to discern that?
Well, here's what I've heard. Everything from 2 feet of snow, okay? They said that if it's snow on the trail, that they would have to ride in the road, okay? The other complaint is they said a lot of times limbs that fell across the bike trail, and that the road was a lot smoother, okay? Right. My question to that is why build the bike trails if you're not going to use the bike trail? And I'm not picking on the bicycles, because I ride a bicycle myself sometimes and I enjoy it. But I think that also you have to have some common sense, because if that driver of that vehicle rounds a turn and he's going 55 miles an hour and you're in the road, then it puts you in danger, and it puts that driver in danger because he's got to put on brakes to try to stop.
Right. Health and Human Resources is another committee that you've been involved in for some time. And we were talking earlier about the agreement that was made a few years ago between the Department of Justice and the Commonwealth regarding our training centers. First of all, describe the occupants of our training centers.
Let me tell you what. You're exactly right. This was an agreement was made, and so now Southside Training Center has closed. That has officially closed as of this past year, and it was a pretty smooth transaction. However, and in fact, some people even, I had one gentleman that was his daughter. He was very upset about the whole thing about closing it. But now he's very happy because his daughter is in a place where it's closer to his home, and it's in a home there that they only have like 4 or 5 in there, and she's getting the care that she needs.
And that was the rationale, put people closer to their communities.
Right. Now, the problem now is we have some people that, in my opinion, and in other people's opinions too, that they cannot have the quality of life. It's a small number, but they cannot have the quality of life that they have now in these settings.
And these are basically adult children of elderly parents.
That's correct.
Who've been institutionalized
Right.
since they were kids.
That's
literally.
right.
Okay.
And yeah, there's so many of them are in their 40s and 50s, and you know, it's not just young
Right.
children. These are adults. A lot of them are adults. And so we're keeping our eyes open. We have postponed the one in Northern Virginia closing, and it's coming up again, and we may, I don't know yet, Woody, but we may postpone that again. We're trying to be, we want to try to care for the people that cannot care for themselves, and that's part of our job. It really is. And these people cannot speak for themselves, so we have to look at this entire thing and see what is best for everyone concerned. Costs, in some cases, the cost of these other caregivers, so to speak, these homes, the cost is actually more than what the institution. But we don't want to institutionalize someone that can live better on the outside. So it's a very difficult mix there to try to solve this, and we're trying to look at it with an open mind and try to do what we feel like is right for the people.
Great. We got about 2 minutes left, but I want to give you an opportunity to relate a story you told me about a trip you took to Taiwan, why it was important, but also how it's involved now in this whole public perception of ethics here in the state capital.
Woody, that's a good point. We have not decided what. I think the bottom line this year will be that we are going to cap all gifts, no matter tangible, intangible, at $100, which I don't have a problem with that at all. I think that's the way it should be. Congress up in Washington, they have this. However, they do take trips. I was fortunate enough about 3-4 years ago to take a trip to Taiwan. Beautiful place, and it was paid for by the Taiwan government. It did not cost the taxpayers of Virginia or the Commonwealth of Virginia or anyone anything. When I went over, right after I was invited to go, I happened to go by a Firestone store there in Hopewell to put some air in my tires, and the man came out and gave me a tire gauge. And I looked at that tire gauge and it said, made in Taiwan. And it seemed like a lot of things that I picked up in the next 30 or 45 days was made in Taiwan. Well, I found out something though, Woody. We import a lot of things from Taiwan that they make. However, we export a lot of things to Taiwan also. So it's a give and take situation there where the United States is making money and the people are creating jobs here. For John Deere, for example, the tractors and things like this, and automobiles, we do.
But it educated you,
yes,
and it helps you here to understand how important export and import is
yes,
as you make laws here.
And this is something I hope that in the ethics that they will take into consideration, because if it is educational and something that's going to help me to make a decision here, I would like to be able to accept that as long as I disclose it, and I disclose it to let everybody know.
Great. Well, thank you for being here, Delegate Riley Ingram. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Woody.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast, connecting Virginians to their government. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.